Alright, so for the modeling and animation 2 guys, here is a rig. This is the final that we'll be presenting. It'll look something like this. All these additional controls. All these parts and controls will be animatable. So just to show you, I'll set a keyframe on this shoulder. I'll go out 27 frames. Set a keyframe. Now we've got some animation. Okay. So that's our goal. Our goal is to have this entire thing done. We're going to have it totally done. And how we start this process is we already have our character modeled and unwrapped with correct topology. I'm just going to go ahead and hide this one. And we'll start today by creating a skeleton. And the easiest way to do that, turn shading, wireframe on shaded on. And come down here, change your tab here to animation, or maybe because it's 2016, maybe it's under rigging. Yep, it's under rigging. So I'm going to do create joints, and I'm going to start here at the hip, and I'm going to move down to the knee, and I'm going to move down to the ankle. And if you notice, when I do this, I have this clear bend at where the knee is. This is telling Maya where to create, where it's going to bend when we animate it. So again, I'm going to do that one more time. I just want to make sure that you're aware that you need to keep, have those bends in there. So I'm going to start one here, one at the hip, one at the knee, one at the ankle, one at the ball toe, and then one for the toe, and hit return. And your first leg should look like this, your first joint. Go ahead and start renaming these. In this case, left L underscore the name of the joint. I called this leg, I actually meant hip. Ankle. Ball toe and toe. Oh. Okay. And here, it's always good to have shading, wireframe on shaded on during this part. And just to make it a little bit easier to see, I'm going to change the color of it. And I'm going to go ahead, and if you hold D, D as in David, you can adjust the pivot point without they added a new rotation to the pivot point, which is kind of annoying. And I want it right on these edge loops, so when it bends at that point. These edge loops here. So I want it to bend at these edge loops. So there's my left hip. And this one I can just go ahead and move over. This is going to be my left knee. And I'm going to take this one over, and this is going to be my left ankle, ball, toe, and toe, and that should be pretty good. Okay. Alright, so we're good there. Now, what I'm going to do next is, in here you can also turn on, it should be X-ray joints. Yep, X-ray joints. There's my joint. You can see Now I have wireframe, unshaded, and X-ray joints. You can mirror joints. Select the highest chain in the hierarchy. So in this case, my left hip. If you select just the left knee, you'll see it doesn't go all the way up to the hip, so you need to select the highest joint in that chain of command. And skeleton mirror joints, YZ, search for L, and I'm going to mirror across the YZ axes, search for L and replace with R, and then I hit mirror, and now you'll notice it says R hip joint, R knee joint, which is really convenient. Let's go ahead and start working our way up to the spine. Skeleton, create joint. This will be my hip, or my root control here, and then this will be like my waist for the spine, and I'm going to work my way up the spine. I'm going to need one in the abdomen to bend at the abdomen. I'll usually throw one more in here, and then one here for the chest, and to go out towards the arms. And then I'll start one at the base of the neck, one at the center of the neck, one at the top of the neck, and then to sort of the back of the head, and then all the way up to the front of the head. And then I'll go ahead and rename these. And these get renamed not all just, so this one will be my root joint. And I always end each one with an extension of J and T. This will be spine 01, J and T. And you can copy and paste this to make it go a little bit faster. So 2, 3, and I'm not going to call this one 4, I call this my chest joint. And then I just start again with neck 01, J and T, copy it, paste it, rename 1 to 2, 3, 4, and this one I call the head joint. Okay, and as long as you have your character modeled on the x-axis facing front, everything we just done so far should be working just fine. Okay, so now I'm going to do the arm. The arm you can start in a couple places. You could start at the top. That's not a bad spot to start, but I prefer going to the front view. And I start here. It's called the clavicle. It controls this region, sort of the trapezius region. Then I go to my shoulder, right on this edge loop where it's going to bend. Down here to the elbow, to the wrist, and then I'm just going to hit return. And I'm going to rename this L clav J and T, L shoulder J and T, L elbow J and T, L wrist J and T, and then I will start with the fingers. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if it's a little bit difficult to kind of make out because the joints are extremely large, go to Display, Animation, and Joint Size. And you can change this to be much smaller. In this case, I'm making it 0.25. I think that should be good. And now I can see my joints much more clearly on where I want them to be located. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and start. moving them into place, just slightly more into place than they were. Okay, and you'll notice here, it actually worked out fine, but it'll be at the 0 here on translate Z, I believe. Yeah. So in this view, in your perspective, you're just going to need to go ahead and slide that over. So or in your top view, depending, just to make sure that you've got it lined up nice and neat. And I can get that right there. Okay, so I've got that pretty well lined up. I'm going to go ahead and start renaming L index 01. JNT, and I always leave the extension on there. This is another one you can copy and paste in. And next one. Alright, cool. Now, duplicate this, slide it over, and that's pretty good. And you'll note that it's obviously not matching up well. So there's a couple tricks you can do. You can select here. I just sometimes will snap it directly to this knuckle joint that I have here, and then just move it sort of back into place, because it's going to be off, because it's differently bent sort of and modeled than the original index, and slightly longer, so it's not going to match as well. And didn't realize I had it in smooth mode. It doesn't really make a difference if it's in smooth mode or not. I mean, it's all pretty much the same. Whatever you're more comfortable working with visually, I guess. So there's 2, and then you have to go ahead and rename this to, that's still going to be 1, middle. Copy. Paste, and do that all the way through. Okay. And just go ahead and then do the same thing for every single one. And then just readjust them slightly. And this is important to get pretty close. It doesn't need to be perfect because of the weight painting, but it needs to be really, really close on where you want it to bend, at least in that general area. Rename these. And one last time for this finger, the pinky. And I'm holding D and V to snap, by the way. Alright. Rename. Copy. Paste. Okay, and do the same thing for the thumb. And for the thumb here, I'm going to go from this view to start off. And because the thumb is slightly different, you have a joint far back here. You've got one here, here, and here. So you still have 4 joints. They're just a little bit weird because you actually do have a joint far back here in the back of the hand. And then we have this one that just bends as is. This one here. Here. Okay. So a lot of people don't realize this, especially if you're new to this, but we have a knuckle way back here, and you can actually crack it, and you get a lot of your rotation from that point. You've got the lifeline here is what I call it. This is your lifeline. And then it basically controls and deforms this entire region here inside the hand. So, never went ahead and replaced the arm, which is not a big deal. So go ahead, rename this joint. This is your L thumb 01 JNT, and I like to keep the extension, if I haven't mentioned already, at the very end for everything I do. So if I do a group, I leave the extension GRP. Okay. Joint JNT, group GRP, pretty much anything that I can. So here, the clavicle, I'm kind of happy with the placement. Maybe move it back slightly. I'm gonna obviously need to do that for the entire arm. For the shoulder, I'm going to just center it a little bit better. Not too much. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with that leg. And I'm going to hold D in this case because I'm going to have it just bend at that point. And this is so Maya knows which way it wants you to bend it. And then this will just go to the center of the wrist. And pretty much sums it up for that. I'm going to now select all the highest joints, joint 1 for all of my fingers or knuckles or whatever you want to call it. Shift select the wrist last and hit P, and now I've got the hand all jointed up. Go ahead and mirror this and make sure it replaces R with L as we did earlier. And now take these two, shift select your chest joint and hit P, and now you've got a full functioning start of the skeleton. So if we select our root control, oh, we got to do it to one more. We got to select these and then shift select the root control and hit P, and now we've got the start of our skeleton. So yeah, when this is all said and done, we've got the start of what we have here. And it will start to become something that we can animate like this because of our joints. If you can see, it's our joints bending. And we'll eventually add some IK handles so we can just move the root control down and the feet will stay planted and it'll bend. And we can do all types of stuff. And begin to pose out our character once we get through all this. Okay. That's that. For creating the